This black girl stopped the court and told the judge that she was hungry. She shocked everyone with what she did as Nia stepped in front of Judge. The courtroom was tense. Every eye trained on Nia as she stood before Judge Callisto. She had hoped for mercy, but this wasn't the kind of judge to show it. Nia, a single mother to a lively 6-year-old named Maya, had already spent the morning juggling her child's illness, a frantic pharmacy run, and now this, a $200 parking fine. It might as well have been $1 million. She couldn't afford it. The parking space she'd taken at the pharmacy had been for the disabled, but she'd figured it would only take a minute. But of course, nothing ever goes according to plan. The ticket, sitting like a weight in her stomach, felt impossible to pay. And so, here she was, trembling as she stood before the judge, hoping her explanation would be enough to convince him to show mercy. Judge Callisto's stern gaze never wavered as he flipped through her case file. He didn't look at her with sympathy. In fact, he didn't seem to be looking at her at all. The cold efficiency of the courtroom pressed in around her, and then the whisper started, the murmurs of the crowd speculating about Nia's fate. But just when it seemed like the situation couldn't get worse, it did. Out of nowhere, a high-pitched voice rang through the room. "I'm hungry, can we get some hamburgers?" Everyone froze. Even Nia's breath caught in her throat. It was Maya, standing beside her mother, her wide brown eyes scanning the room, completely oblivious to the tension she'd just caused. For a moment, everyone just stared, and then, as if in slow motion, Judge Callisto's eyebrows shot up. Did he just hear what she said? Nia, mortified, cast a glance at Maya, whispering urgently, "We're not allowed to interrupt the judge." But Maya, ever the innocent child, didn't seem to care about courtroom protocol. Instead, she looked around the room, her gaze landing on the large painting of a man with a wig that hung on the wall. She was lost in thought, completely unaware of the disaster she might have just triggered. Judge Callisto, his stern face unreadable, glanced from Maya to Nia, as though weighing something. Finally, he broke the silence. "Did you say hamburgers, young lady?" The words were soft, almost gentle. The courtroom held its collective breath. Was this really happening? Nia was sure the judge would explode, but instead, he leaned forward in his chair, eyes fixed on Maya, who was now looking back at him, still no sign of fear or awareness of the gravity of the situation. She simply nodded, as if this was just another part of her day. The judge's gaze softened. "Well, Maya, it's been a long morning for you, hasn't it? Why don't you come up here and tell me more about these hamburgers?" Nia blinked, her heart racing. Was he actually inviting her daughter to the bench? The audience's whispers grew louder. What kind of judge was this? Before Nia could protest, Maya tugged at her hand, her eyes wide with excitement. With a small nod from her mother, Maya skipped up to the judge's bench, her little legs swinging as she climbed the steps. Nia watched, her face flushed with a mix of embarrassment and disbelief. What on earth was going on? Maya stood proudly in front of the judge, her innocent face framed by wild curls. Judge Callisto, though still a figure of authority, had an unusual warmth in his eyes as he watched Maya. "So, Maya, tell me about these hamburgers," he said, his tone much softer than it had been moments before. Maya's stomach growled audibly, and she placed a hand on her tiny belly. "I'm really hungry," she said, her voice sweet but firm. "We didn't have breakfast, and my mommy's been talking a lot. Can we have hamburgers?" The room, which had been on edge just seconds before, now seemed to hold its breath. The judge didn't scold Maya. He didn't even look at Nia with judgment. Instead, he turned to her, his expression more compassionate than she'd ever seen. "I understand, Maya. Let's make sure we take care of that rumbling stomach first." The judge waved for the bailiff, who came forward, carrying a brown paper bag. When the bag was placed on the bench, Maya's face lit up. Inside were sandwiches, juice boxes, and snacks, exactly what she needed. "Here you go, young lady." Judge Callisto said with a smile, his earlier severity replaced by a surprising kindness. "You're not the only one who gets hungry during long court days." Maya's eyes sparkled as she reached for a sandwich, her hunger forgotten in the warmth of the moment. Nia, still in shock, couldn't believe what she was seeing. In all her years of hearing about Judge Callisto, she'd never once imagined him capable of such a gesture. Once Maya had settled, munching happily on her sandwich, the judge turned his attention back to Nia. The tension in the room had shifted. The audience, who had once feared the judge's wrath, now seemed to breathe easier, unsure what to expect next. Judge Callisto resumed the case, but his demeanor had softened. He carefully reviewed Nia's record, spotless, without so much as a speeding ticket. He'd heard her story, heard about her struggles as a single mother juggling jobs to get by. And slowly, a shift occurred in his heart. After a long pause, Judge Callisto spoke. "I've reviewed your case, Nia. This is your first parking violation in 9 years, and given the circumstances, I'm going to dismiss this ticket." A collective gasp went through the courtroom. Nia's heart skipped a beat, the weight lifting from her chest, but the judge wasn't done. "I understand the difficulties of being a single parent," he continued, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "I want to help you with more than just this fine. Here's a list of resources available for single mothers in our community: childcare support, career programs, and educational opportunities." Nia stared at the list in disbelief. Could this really be happening? As the courtroom erupted into applause, Nia's eyes filled with tears. She never expected mercy, but here it was, offered with kindness, understanding, and a dash of humanity. Judge Callisto's reputation had always been that of a no-nonsense enforcer of the law. But today, he showed that the law wasn't just about punishment, it was about helping people, lifting them up when they needed it most. And for Nia, Maya, and everyone watching, that small act of kindness meant everything. Don't forget to comment your opinion on this story. Subscribe for daily true stories.